Okay, I watched the movie Woman King. I didn't think I was going to see it, but I decided to see it because this young woman had made a video about it. And she did some research concerning it. Of course, it's not all the way true because Hollywood always has a narrative to tell. But I want people to see the truth in this movie if they do go and see it. Because obviously, there's some truth to it. There was the Kingdom of Dahomey, the Oyo Kingdom, and then Ouida. And these are the places and the people which were involved. There were some slave traders that came over from, I think, Brazil, so they were like the Portuguese. Ouida is still on the map of Africa. It is either spelled Whydah or it's spelled Ouidah. This is the same exact word as Judah or Yehuda. So Sir Francis Richard Burton, he was a French geographer, and he had a book called Mission to Galilee or Galilee. I think it's referring to Galilee, but I'm not sure. Um, and so he says in his book, there's 115 towns of the tribe of Judah um, in this place called Ouida. No coincidence. So in the movie, they are taking the slaves from Ouida. Why? Because these are resident slaves of the tribe of Judah. Now, these Dahomey Amazons are also mentioned in A Mission to Galilee. I don't know like to what extent, but if you look at the blurbs concerning it, it does talk about the Amazons as well, which is what these women were. Um, there's certain parts in the movie that are giving me biblical vibes. So the man, he was a Portuguese son of a slave from the Dahomey area. His father was a white slave master, I'm assuming, where he worked in some kind of shack or whatever the deal is. And he came to Dahomey because his mom had told him to. But he was with his friend who was a Portuguese guy, and he basically was a slave trader. And so these Dahomey women, these Amazons, were trying to fight the kingdom of Oyo, which I think Oyo is actually the name of one of their gods. Maybe Oyo and Odume are the same, but when you look it up, this god sounds very similar to Yahweh in the Bible, like very, very similar. The most similar that I've ever heard any god sound. But Dahomey and Oyo were against one another. Um, I want to talk about the dress too of Oyo. I initially thought they were Hebrews, but then they kind of looked like the Berbers. Like they kind of had that Berber dress. I don't know. I'll have to look more into them. But I wanted to say the king of Dahomey had this staff that was of a serpent, and like a servant that was a male that definitely had a serpent spirit, and he was kind of, he definitely was in the other males, is what it seemed like. And so what it said to me was these people of Dahomey are serving Satan to some kind of extent. That's what the serpent represents. But I want to say it was a story. It wasn't just about fighting. It was also a story about sisterhood and healing, is what it seemed to me. Because the young lady, um, which really was the star, not really Viola Davis. Maybe they put her in all the advertising because she's super famous, but she was like, she had won wars for Dahomey. She was like a lead, probably the lead. She had found out that the young girl was actually her daughter, and how she found out was she was raped by one of these leaders in Oyo, and when she had the baby from him, she had put a shark's tooth inside the baby, and then she found out that the young warrior girl was her daughter by taking the shark tooth out of her arm. And so that was intriguing because it seemed like Viola Davis's character was gaining some healing along the way. But the Bible talks about how the woman will be delivered in childbirth. And so it was like finding out that she had this daughter, she started to learn how to love again and that kind of thing. So that was a good part. Nonetheless, they were still like killers. So Viola Davis ended up killing the man that raped her and all that. The daughter and the Amazons ended up getting captured, some of the Amazons over in Ouida, and they were about to be sold into slavery. Um, this Messiah figure gained a liking for the daughter warrior, and after he had seen, like, he was bathing and that kind of stuff, and she was sneaking through the woods and trying to find out what was going on, and that's how they met. And he was very gentle and kind, and he was wearing a cross around his neck. So other parts in the movie where they were involved was he had asked her to meet him out somewhere, and they were speaking, and she went back, and that's when she found out who her mom was. And her mom was basically like, you shouldn't be hanging out with this man, like, we don't hang out with men, we're warriors, all that kind of stuff. And the other part was where after they got caught into slavery, the young warrior girl ended up killing a couple slave masters, which is a huge no-no, because you killed a white man, you'll probably be put to death. And so he had given her, you know, a room to stay in and locked her in there initially. Well, he came back and she was like, "You locked me in here," and all that kind of stuff. But then he gave her a key. Is that not what the Messiah does? Like, he gives us a key to things. So I don't know if they ended up hooking up or whatever the deal is, but there was a part where Viola Davis's character had came in with her other Amazon soldiers to gather the prisoners, which would include the young warrior girl, her daughter, who was hanging out with this Messiah figure. And so they had released these soldiers, and there was a big old fight going on. And I don't know, daughter girl came out and she was like naked with a blanket over her. And then the Messiah figure was like, he was wearing his pants, but he didn't have a shirt on. I'm like, did they hook up? Did they not hook up? I'm not really sure. So basically, young warrior girl says, you know, I have to leave you, Messiah figure. I have to go fight for my people. But then could it have been a key to free her people? Because the Messiah loosens the bondage of people. He has the keys to heaven and to hell, to be honest. Well, just like these women, they were going out to war. Just like the men in the movie, they were going out to war. A lot of people talk about how, well, there's all these wars in the Bible. Yes, it's true. A lot of the wars are between nation and nation from the enemy. Some of the wars are wars fought between good and evil. It's all for good, to be honest. But King David was one of these warriors of the Most High, and he represented the seed of Christ. So when he would go out, he was fighting in the name of the Most High. He was killing off people, it's true. But these tribes weren't just any people. They were very evil nations from Satan. So God will also use the good to fight the bad. He will use the bad to fight the bad in order for good to come forth. And so she leaves and she goes and does that. And the Messiah figure is like, I'll go with you. And they're fighting these people. And yeah, so what ends up happening, somehow they end up on the beach, and there's all these slaves that the Messiah figure, he's taking the slaves, and he releases them all. I say it doesn't get much more obvious than this. Like, who freed the slaves in Egypt? You know, I am that I am. That's who freed the slaves, these Hebrew slaves. He went and freed them. He actually, after he freed these slaves took this Portuguese guy that he was friends with and drowned him, and he gonna sit there and let them drown him. I thought that was so funny, because I'm just like, that's exactly what's gonna happen to these people in the last days who took these slaves, oh my gosh, and treated them like nothing. Because look, slavery is in the Bible. God is not against slavery, but the slavery in which God has in the Bible is more like indentured servitude, where you went and you did something wrong, or you owe something to someone, and so now you have to pay it back through work. And so it kind of reminds me of the U.S., because the U.S. takes out a certain amount on every person when they're born. Like, people are worth millions of dollars. And so they take out some kind of bond on everybody in the U.S. as a U.S. citizen. That's like what your birth certificate and your social security card are. And so I'm just thinking, are we working to pay this bond off? I don't know. But anyway, maybe some sovereign citizen can enter and tell me a little something concerning that. But yeah, so they drowned the slave master. The Messiah did absolutely nothing. And then his lady is walking back to go figure out the rest that's going on, and he kind of bids her adieu, and you know, but at the end of the movie, she's talking to her mom, and you know, she had let the Messiah go, and she's basically like, maybe I was just born to be the killer. I'm a daughter to a killer. But the reason why I want to talk about this is because some of these people were Hebrews, some of them were held captive and that kind of thing, and I believe that God did come to them, and he always offers people, do you want to stay or do you want to go? She ended up leaving, and she said she was born to be a killer. That's what she wants to be. I mean, this dude was offering her freedom. Like, he said he would take her to Britain, I think it was, and she can be well and all this kind of stuff, but she chose to live in darkness instead. And this could be the story about Dahomey, you know? The woman represents Eve, who was deceived by the serpent, and their freaking king is holding a staff that's a serpent. But it looked like to me the slaves chose to be free. So very interesting things. Look into Ouida, the 115 towns of Judah. Look into Oyo. I think his other name is Odin Mayer or something like that, because he sounds exactly like the Most High. Look into Dahomey Land, because these movies aren't coming up for no reason. They're showing you exactly what happened then, even if it's your Hollywood white Messiah. I mean, he was half black. I mean, he was lighter skinned. I don't know. There's a purpose to all of it. So don't just like assume because it follows the Hollywood narrative that there's no truth to it. You know, there's always truth to these things, but you have to be digging deeper. So you guys be blessed and have a good one. Bye.